Good morning, America. Happy Sunday. I'm Robert McNeely as President Trump and European Union President von der Leyen will get together to hold a meeting at 11:30 Eastern. That is, of course, East Coast time, and then all the way over in the UK, Scotland. That is a beautiful early evening, late afternoon, as we enjoy a lovely shot of White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And President Trump has been really speaking on this for a long time now, that wanting to meet with the European Union to renegotiate specific trade deals, specific arrangements that will lead to security throughout the world, and specifically with the continent. We know that there was somewhat of a departure from the Trump foreign policy with the Patriot missiles being sold via NATO and Europe paying for that in order to protect Ukraine in the ongoing conflict with Russia. But as President Trump has put it on multiple occasions, he'll speak to Vladimir Putin, and then he does the exact opposite of what he had told the president. So ideally, that comes to an end now, roughly 40 or so days for a peace agreement to happen, or 100% tariffs will be going up against the Russian Federation. Secondary tariffs, in fact. So we look forward to what develops there. This is the Peace Through Strength candidate, the Peace Through Strength commander-in-chief. And we know that the European Union and NATO very happy, very satisfied, including the NATO Secretary General saying that this individual, President Trump, is the peace candidate, but also knows how to bring about that peace, and it's through that strength, unafraid to use force when necessary, as it was necessary against the Iranian regime to end the 12-day war. But President Trump, in style, showing his incredible golf prowess as well. They're at Turnberry in Aberdeen, actually stating on Friday, if you caught any of our coverage off of Air Force One as they touched down in Glasgow, that President Trump was able to acquire these great properties through the help of the late great actor Sean Connery. So they were friends, and that was a bit of a surprise to me. I didn't know that Sean Connery had anything to do with that arrangement, that agreement. But Turnberry itself, probably the #1 course rated in the entire world, and President Trump taking some sports questions as well. We know that he does enjoy sports and competition, and the fact that the Open Championship, which was just played last weekend nearby in Scotland and won by the great American Scottie Scheffler, this championship might be going back to Turnberry, as it once was host in the 1970s to great shootouts between Tom Watson and Jack Nicklaus, for all of the golf fans out there. But we await at the bottom of the hour here President Trump and European Union President Ursula von der Leyen, to hold a meeting at 11:30. So stay tuned for that and for all of that commentary as the Democrats stateside continue to throw spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, and they're on an all-out attack on the one big beautiful bill. But we know that their lie about it ending health care in rural areas and shutting down hospitals in rural America is simply not true. So today's memo this is Friday from the White House, the one big beautiful bill is a historic investment in rural health care, outlines in detail how the president's landmark legislation makes historic investments in vulnerable communities to ensure health care options are made sustainable in rural America, so they can rely on that, so that timely care can happen. Because we know in this country, because of big bureaucratic neocon and neoliberal uniparty plans over the course of the last many decades, healthcare has really been more of sick care in this country, and that's why you've had such an initiative to make America healthy again, whether it be through Health and Human Services with Robert F. Kennedy, or President Trump's approach to the holistic of the person, sealing the border, having a strong and good economy, keeping it open and not shutting down people like during the COVID pandemic, allowing them to choose whether or not to go to church, whether or not to go to the gym. Remember all those crazy lockdowns? I sure do. It was really very irritating. And now we live with constitutional governance once again after the Autopen administration. Now, the one big beautiful bill ultimately transforms rural health care in America with historic investments and radical transparency. Now, the Rural Health Transformation Program will provide unprecedented new funding to states for a range of uses designed to make rural health care more effective and sustainable for the long term. Collaborating with Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, states must submit detailed rural health transformation plans on how these resources will put to work improving access to health care providers and transformational deals to use these resources and improve health outcomes. Now, the CMS will monitor implementation and hold states accountable to this plan to ensure resources are approximately and appropriately distributed and going to the most deserving, not just those who have the most access, but ensuring that true health care for all Americans. And most of our country is rural. It is wide open spaces. And that's always fun when you have people either studying abroad or from different places who have come to America, and specifically the Korean population that actually has the largest population on my alma mater's campus, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And it was always interesting to speak to those students because they thought that although multiple cities, that America is just one big New York City, one big Chicago, and that it was city after city after city. Then they go out west and see that only 9% of the population between the Mississippi River up to the Golden Coast of California, those mountain states, only 9% of the country lives there. So it's wide open spaces. It's all about freedom. And this is why the One Big Beautiful Bill is focused especially on health care in these areas. Now, ensuring sustainability of rural health care by addressing systemic challenges, the White House talking directly to this, unlike smaller programs that have traditionally been the main mechanism to support rural care. The Rural Health Transformation Program is uniquely designed to promote innovation and long-term sustainability of healthcare. Now, these hospitals suffer from chronic challenges with extremely low patient volume, and they have both smaller bed counts than urban hospitals and occupancy rates that are much lower, exactly at 37% than those of their urban counterparts, which usually takes up a 62% bed rate. So who's actually in the hospital during those stays. Therefore, when programs link funding to reimbursements for services provided, as some of these legacy programs do, these programs do not promote the long-term sustainability as the overall volume of services provided in these facilities by remaining low. So in other words, these programs do not actually provide hospitals with those investments that would help them sustain themselves. Now, distinct from these other programs, Rural Health Transformation Program is designed to promote innovation in payment and flexibility. These funds can be used to help these facilities make investments necessary to better meet the needs of the communities that they are serving. And again, this is why there was always something for all of these people to get around in Congress, these lawmakers, around the One Big Beautiful Bill. Granted, okay, you could criticize how large it was, but what's there not to like in there? By addressing these healthcare issues that have long been overlooked, or making permanent the Trump tax cuts, or even securing the border, that full funding. We heard that from Tom Homan at the summit last week, where Kristi Noem kicked it off regarding human trafficking. And Homan very clear on the fact that he had to live for years and years, especially during the Auto Pen administration, kicking the wall, literally being so upset that these young children are coming over the border alone, being trafficked by the cartels. And with this funding, we can now make sure that doesn't happen anymore. Near zero coming over the border over the last few months here because of the Trump agenda. Now, health industry promotes flawed analysis to hide the real positive effects of the One Big Beautiful Bill. Rural hospitals only receive 7% of Medicaid hospital spending, yet industry leaders and lobbyists continue to cry foul and fearmonger that the law puts rural healthcare facilities at risk when it actually is the one big beautiful bill delivering historic investments into this health transformation program to ensure undeserved hospitals are strengthened. This is a momentous victory that should be celebrated for years to come after neglect from both Republican and Democrat administrations of years past. Now, the disparity between urban and rural hospitals clearly shows how the waste, fraud, and abuse that proliferated during the Otto Penn administration did not benefit the most vulnerable hospitals. The one big beautiful bill aggressively goes after that waste, fraud, and abuse by enforcing eligibility requirements and prioritizing work over welfare. I mean, even Bill Clinton talked about this, that if you're able-bodied in this country, you should be working. And he was called even the first black president. And he was someone who put people back to work when they were able-bodied. It made sense. What happened to that Democrat Party of the 90s? Seems to be gone roughly 30 years later now. The one big beautiful bill aggressively goes after that waste, that fraud and abuse, and stops the subsidization of illegal immigrants. This momentous effort to combat the waste, fraud, and abuse has allowed Congress to open up other plans and do rescissionary packages like the $9 billion you just saw recently as they return to their local districts. So that part of the bill, it's good to clarify and talk about still, because you have the left claiming that hospitals are being shut down. Nothing could be further from the truth. And right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, you will get the right side of history. Thank you to our sponsors at RSBN's live desk, MyPillow.com. The free shipping sale at the My Cross that it's fun to wear every day, but especially on Sunday, the Lord's Day. Save half off with Mike Lindell's replica cross. They have a female version of it, also a male version. So great for the jewelry collection. The My Pillow bed sheets going for as low as $24.98, all colors, all sizes. The multi-use My Pillow 2.0, now $9.98. Think about pink, gray, white, red, blue, whatever you'd like color-wise, and also those themed pillows of with God, all things are possible. One nation under God, with Lady Liberty in the New York Harbor. Call today, don't delay, with over 2,000 products at mypillow.com/RSBN. 800-836-7566. That's 800-836-7566. Support Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network. Shop now at mypillow.com/RSBN. And if you'd like to donate to the network that was your go-to rally network, it's now your go-to live desk, and we're going strong after a decade and have no stop in sight. You can go to rsbnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801. That's rsbnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801. Or if you use checks and you don't care for a computer, it is 2025, but we still have an address, 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6. That's Box 344 in the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Thank you for your sponsorship and for your assistance. We're taking on the legacy media. We're changing it up as we see this right here, a live shot of where President Trump will be with the European Union president. That's Ursula von der Leyen, and she is a German ancestry. And I look forward to this conversation because it's been amazing with German leadership. They whine about the influence of Russia. They are complaining about the invasion of Ukraine. In certain situations, that is an argument that is duly noted. But then why were they taking oil from Russia and allowing Russian oil to dominate Europe? a big question President Trump has put on the table. And why did AutoPen get rid of our Keystone XL pipeline coming from Alaska? Even the communist Justin Trudeau was on his knees begging President Trump, please, or President Biden, please, Mr. President, do not get rid of that. It will kill Canadian jobs, as it did, especially through British Columbia and through Alberta. This president reinstating that in the drilling on federal lands in Alaska. Not to mention the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania with that recent visit, $92 billion, in fact, going into the Keystone State to drill, baby, drill, and nuclear and all the above energy policy, except for the bird killers, of course, that China likes to sell. They can't be recycled. And then if you go to China, they don't have any windmills. Interesting how that works itself out, but that's a big topic of conversation between the United States and Europe. Energy, the continued Russia-Ukraine conflict. President Trump making this really a working and business and pleasure type of weekend. We know he's a great golfer. We know about Turnberry and Aberdeen, where he met with the UK Prime Minister. But you have to see, at nearly 80 years young, this incredible golf swing of President Trump. He's a scratch golfer. And if you have not been to either the Emerald Isle of Ireland or just to the northeast of the UK and Scotland, it's the home of golf. And look at these beautiful views, but also that incredible swing of President Trump.
Oh, good shot. Good shot. Great ball. Look at that comeback. Beautiful shot.
Thank you.
That's perfect.
Nice putt.
Be the right club.
I mean, that's a great swing. It is a president who is working around the clock. Meanwhile, plenty of meetings in Scotland, also being met by the Scottish people with cheers, whether it was the motorcade, whether it was the people you saw when we went live on Friday afternoon when Air Force One touched down at Glasgow. So they are a freedom-loving people. They really got freedom started in the Western civilization. When you think about it, the great Robert the Bruce or even William Wallace, dating back to the 12th centuries when they stood up to tyranny first and foremost, and inspiring things like the Magna Carta, English common law, everything our country really comes from. And President Trump not only golfing during this trip and enjoying time with his son Eric and family members and all those golf carts around him, Secret Service, at his course at Turnberry that Gary Player said definitely a top 5 course throughout the entire world, and how much he's enjoyed playing it as a pro. President Trump saying, thank you, Gary Player, for all of your contributions to the game. President Trump also on the phone with the Cambodian Prime Minister in this period of time, talking deals, talking ending the conflict with Thailand, which we just made another great agreement and trade deal with the people of Thailand last week. I just had a very good call with the Prime Minister of Cambodia and informed him of my discussions with Thailand and its acting Prime Minister. Both parties are looking for an immediate ceasefire and peace. They are also looking to get back to the trading table with the United States, which we think is inappropriate to do until such time the fighting stops. They have agreed to immediately meet and quickly work out a ceasefire and ultimately peace. It was an honor to deal with both countries. They have a long and storied history and culture. They will hopefully get along for many years to come. When all is done, peace is at hand. I look forward to concluding our trading agreements with both. And with Thailand, specifically with the Philippines, they will need to pay a 90% tariff to even enter our markets. We don't have to do that in return. There's no reciprocal there, and that's President Trump's brilliance, as Japan has agreed to a $550 billion deal in the meantime as well. And just late last week, the United States State Department, in case you missed it, stating that and recommending Americans do not travel to Venezuela. With the dangers going on there with its extreme government. It's a far-left communist nation. And God willing, it will return to common sense and free markets once again. It once did way back when in 1992 and prior. It was an oil-rich nation. Still is, but evil people took it over with a government that really rules with an iron fist. And the Venezuelan culture, again, just as beautiful as the Cambodian and Thai cultures. And this is the Peace Through Strength candidate. So he's not only enjoying some R&R, but also getting right to work, as we'll see the president and the European Union president moments from now. And in case you missed it, the motorcade going through Scotland and the great Scottish people cheering for President Trump. They're freedom-loving, and they love America just as much as we love the great Scottish culture. Let's take a look. Always fun to see our friends across the pond and nations that have stood the test of time fighting for independence and liberty. It's a beautiful thing to see President Trump working overtime for this country. Someone who could have just hung it on up, and he said, no, we got to get back there. As he left in 2021 in that unfair moment, January 20th, before boarding Air Force One from Joint Base Andrews, he said, we will be back, meaning him and our wonderful First Lady, in some form. And I remember being in that CPAC just weeks after the fact, and Jim Jordan was the first official endorsement, the great congressman from Ohio saying, I'm endorsing President Donald Trump for 2024. And then it all got underway once again. And an incredible time in American history. We were born for such a time as this, and so was our commander-in-chief. Now, the Democrats apparently owe money, as President Trump stating that on Truth Social. We know that they like to play a multitude of games when it comes to spinning the narrative inside and outside of the Beltway, but President Trump stating, I'm looking at the large amount of money owed by the Democrats after the presidential election. In fact, they admit to paying, probably illegally, $11 million to singer Beyonce for an endorsement. She never sang, not even one note. and left the stage to a booing and angry audience. I remember that was, I believe, in Atlanta, Georgia, that took place. Now, $3 million for expenses to Oprah, $600,000 to a very low-rated TV anchor, Al Sharpton. You might have heard his name. A total lightweight. And others to be named for doing absolutely nothing. These ridiculous fees were incorrectly stated in the books and in the records. You are not allowed to pay for an endorsement. It is totally illegal to do so. Can you imagine what would happen if politicians started paying people to endorse them? All hell would break out. Kamala and all of those that received endorsement money broke the law. They should all be prosecuted. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And what a great day to be back in constitutional governance, where the hunters are now going to become the hunted. Peacefully and patriotically, everyone's presumed innocent until they are guilty in a court of law, deemed by a judge or a jury of their peers. And we now know, thanks to 200 pages declassified and released by the Department of National Intelligence chairwoman, Tulsi Gabbard, that these individuals, Barack Hussein Obama, the Autopen, Joseph R. Biden Jr., crooked Hillary Clinton, the communist John Brennan, and 8647 Seashells, James Comey, among others, perhaps guilty of high treason for plotting the Russia hoax, the Crossfire Hurricane, the Steele dossier. It was all fake. It was all produced. And now you have Andy McCabe going on the Clinton News Network stating that, oh, it was a difference of opinion on intelligence. Oh, that was that simple. Even with all of the attempts at the prosecutions, the attempt to usurp the executive authority of the President of the United States. I happened to be at the White House the first time Robert Mueller testified to Congress back in 2017. We took a team of people from Turning Point USA to go see all of the top staffers. I'm texting one of my good friends, dear friend of mine actually, a college roommate, who's now a special assistant to the President of the United States. He said, you're not going to see anyone today. And we had to shuffle everyone out of there roughly after an hour. We're seeing a low-level official, still someone very important in the administration, but everyone was shocked by the news that day. How could this be? That allegedly President Trump colluding with the Russians? That doesn't make any sense. And our fears were proven true by a deep state uniparty, neocon, neoliberal, League of Shadows globalists that don't really care too much about your freedom of thought, your ability to choose. The fact that you can go into that private ballot box and make a selection from dog catcher to precinct committeeman, state reps and state legislators, and then also city councils, school boards, all the way up to Congress, judges, and ultimately the President of the United States. You have that choice in this constitutional republic. But the globalists didn't seem to think so over the course of the last few years, and President Trump really pulling back that curtain and exposing just how corrupt these people were in Washington, D.C., regardless of an R next to their name or a D next to their name. So the MAGA movement is truly a third-party populist attempt to bring the power back to you, the middle class, and to reduce the size and scope of the federal government. You know, President Reagan spoke on this. It was his dream to rid the Department of Education brought about by the Carter administration, and President Trump able to get it done ultimately through the great work of Linda McMahon as it just begins to return the power back to the states as aligned in the 10th Amendment. That's why we have 50 laboratories of democracy, 6 territories, in order to experiment and find what are the best solutions, what are the best ideas, what truly is constitutional governance. And even though the greats like Alexander Hamilton, who wrote eloquently in the Federalist Papers throughout the 1780s, his argument was a strong centralized government in Washington, D.C. Now, just being a student of history and loving this, the last 250 years and how grand this nation is, I would argue even someone like the late great Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton would not want the last few years, last 25, 30 years of this uniparty that would rather welcome the Chinese Communist Party into the global order and the World Economic Forum, at the meantime bankrupting Detroit, that was able to produce so much not only in our manufacturing, but our car industry and Motown. And now it's coming back because of the smart policies of this president. It was once accepted that, why even study the trades? There's no need to. Someone that's in your neck of the woods doesn't have to do that. And then we saw a Midwest that was depleted, towns falling apart. The story of Hillbilly Elegy and Vice President J.D. Vance, who will be traveling this week into the heartland to tackle these ongoing issues. You had an administration that literally allowed poisons to be dropped with a train derailment in Palestine, Ohio, and no one came to visit, except for the then Senator J.D. Vance. And if you remember, as he took that big walking stick and was gliding it through the water, all the different colors and chemicals that were coming about. I can remember being on the campaign trail back in 2016. It was actually at a then Governor Pence rally for Trump Pence right after he was named as the running mate. And it was in Lansing, Michigan. And I remember just speaking to folks, and they said, we have not voted for a presidential candidate in nearly 40 years. But I will walk over hot coals for President Donald Trump. And they were calling him president even before the case. It was a groundswell, a movement that was truly middle America. And the city and states that had broad shoulders that built this great nation. That's how it turned out. And Crooked Hillary, she was caught falling over at the memorials and stumbling during those great debates. And that's why President Trump crossed that finish line in such a grand gesture, because it was about time that we thought, what do we have to lose? Maybe elect someone who knows a thing or two about money, and with the personality and the knowledge to potentially put criminals behind bars. So we'll see as all this information comes out, but what a time to be alive, and what a scandal it was by the prior administration to attempt to say, no, you can't have a duly elected constitutional officer, someone that the people placed, a private citizen who came down a golden escalator simply seeking to serve. It's a uniquely American story, and you're all part of it here. And we'll always celebrate that at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Thank you to our sponsors here at RSBN's Live Desk. MyPillow.com/RSBN. You have 2,000 different options on this great website. And let me tell you, when I was struggling with sleep and having a bright, bold, good day the following morning, it was MyPillow that I turned to with the MyPillow 1.0. But now you have the multi-use MyPillow 2.0. That's better than any lunch deal out there. Look, it's less than $10, $9.98 for a special style pillow, or a gray, a pink, a white. Get red, white, blue, whatever you'd like. It's up to you. At mypillow.com/RSBN. The MyPillow bed sheets, all sizes, all colors, going for $24.98. And the MyCross, save 50%, half off of the cross that Mike Lindell wears on a daily basis. Support Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network at mypillow.com/RSBN, 800-836-7566. And while you're at that, make sure your health is taken care of with All Family Pharmacy. Now, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You may remember President Trump signing that executive order to bring down the cost of prescription drugs, but even a new COVID variant is out there in the summertime. And if you're traveling far and wide by plane, train, and automobile across this great nation, it's smart to have the life-saving medication like ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, NAD+, mebendazole, methylene blue, and much, much more. In fact, 200 essential medications that you could take on the road with antibiotics and also emergency medical kits. Code RSBN10, that's RSBN10. That is 10% off today. Scan the QR code there. And you will also get a special deal if you watch this past week with Michael Kunzler, the great co-owner of All Family Pharmacy, throwing in an additional 25% off. So use code RSBN10 for 10% off. With the additional 25 from Michael, you'll get 35% off if you order today. So it's $11.35 on the East Coast. Order right now. Those medications will be at your door in 24 hours. There's no red tape. If you don't have insurance, no worries there. Just great doctors, pharmacists, nurses who care about your health. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And a good Sunday morning to you. I'm Robert McNeely at RSBN's live desk. We are awaiting President Trump to meet with the European Union president, that is Ursula von der Leyen from Germany, to discuss a whole plethora of issues on trade, on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, I'm sure on energy as well, because that's really been the question President Trump has had in the last few years. Germany complaining and Europe as a whole, especially Eastern Europe, about the so-called Russian threat as they invaded Ukraine. But why then are you so beholden to the energy that really keeps the lights on in Europe? It doesn't make a lot of sense. And President Trump understands that we can't be dependent on foreign nations and that we need to drill, baby, drill, and that we still have plenty of reserves, even when tapped into. It can go on for hundreds of years. We have liquid gold under our feet, even more than anyone else, including the Middle East. President Trump knows these things, and that's why things like the Keystone XL pipeline are back on board. It's good for American jobs, good for Canadian jobs, and that's even why the communist Justin Trudeau, the former Prime Minister of Canada, the 51st state, former governor, I should say, that he was begging the Otto Penn presidency, please, please, please reinstate that big, beautiful pipeline for jobs in Alberta and British Columbia, let alone America. And that might be a topic of discussion as they are to meet later today, President Trump and President von der Leyen of the European Union. As we await that, President Trump has been visiting the beautiful country of Scotland within the United Kingdom. And it truly is a unique and premier golf destination, as President Trump was able to enjoy his very own Turnberry. And in case you missed the landing in Glasgow on Friday off of Air Force One, President Trump stated just that the late great actor, a friend of his, Sean Connery, helped him in those deals to obtain Turnberry in Aberdeen, where President Trump was meeting privately over dinner and lunch summits with UK's Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. And for two gentlemen, President Trump mentioning that they're getting along handsomely. One is really a free market capitalist. The other is very, very, very far on the left. In fact, a socialist and someone who's for the collective in more ways than one, really coming to new great terms and new great trade deals between the United States and between the United Kingdom. And if that's not enough to go down in roughly 48 or so hours, President Trump also on the phone with Cambodia, with Thailand. This is off the heels of great trade deals with Thailand, the Philippines, and Japan, all here stateside just late last week. But ending that conflict between Cambodia and Thailand specifically, two great nations, two great cultures. And just like with India and Pakistan, that President Trump helped facilitate negotiations and peace and the end of that potential nuclear conflict. President Trump stating that we can't move forward with a Cambodian trade deal with the United States unless peace is met, unless those terms come together. And we know as well, we're roughly getting now into the 30 or so days President Trump has set against the Russian Federation. If they do not come to the table for peace and to end this conflict with Ukraine, it will be secondary tariffs in the form of 100% secondary tariffs the United States will implement on Russia if Vladimir Putin does not stop the attacks and this ongoing stalemate and aggression upon Ukraine. And we know that the Ukrainian people and the Russian people, both great cultures, incredible individuals. They have a lot that's alike to traditional Americans, but they have two leaders who, quite frankly, are warmongers who are both wrong in this conflict, who have such deep hatred for one another. This is Vladimir Putin and Vladimir Zelensky. They might share a first name, but the hatred runs deep in their hearts for one another. And it's sad to see, because in the middle of all this, civilians and military casualties running amok into the hundreds of thousands, into the millions over the course of the last 3.5 years. And very sad to see. And these weapons of war causing mass casualties. But President Trump making available and selling Patriot missiles to NATO and Europe, and they're paying for all of it to defend Ukraine. And the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, a former Dutch Prime Minister, stating, it makes sense, President Trump, that you would want it that way. We're appreciative, but it makes sense because this is not your conflict. But it's also bad when President Trump, as he stated, when President Putin would be on the phone with him saying, we want peace, we want peace, we want peace, and then hours later, he'd go and strike a civilian apartment, for example, or actually take collateral damage in this process. And it just should not be happening. And it would not have happened if President Trump had that second term right up against the first term instead of the term of autopen. This is just simply cleaning up the mess of Barack Hussein Obama and Joseph R. Biden Jr., two failed presidents, two people who are arguably the worst to ever have served in the role of commander-in-chief, because they allowed these conflicts to be ongoing. Let's go back all the way to where General Flynn was targeted by the Obama administration, all part of Crossfire Hurricane. He told then President-elect Donald Trump in the Oval Office, this is President Obama speaking, that you'll have to worry about Mike Flynn. You don't want him around your team. He's not telling the truth. President Trump listening, taking in the information. Also, you will go to war with North Korea. That's the biggest conflict. And then President-elect Donald Trump said to now the former president, did you ever try calling him? Did you call little rocket man Kim Jong-un? He said, no, I never did. Well, we know what happened there. President Trump writing letters, as he has to countless nations now, on trade deals and renegotiating the global markets. But he asked Kim Jong-un, why would you want to keep going with this nuclear program? You're a sitting duck. You're going to create all this conflict. And as North Korea knows, as China knows, as Russia knows, as the whole world, our friends and our foes know, we can now go into a country undetected with B-2 bombers and knock out a nuclear facility and then follow that with Tomahawk missiles. All while no surface-to-air missiles fired by the enemy and no casualties on either side. That's the capabilities of the United States technology. That's the capabilities of the United States military, thanks to President Trump and the Pentagon chief, Pete Hegseth. It's President Trump, dating back to that, he starts calling, he starts writing letters, and then he ends up ultimately meeting in Singapore, having good relations with Kim Jong-un. And then Kim Jong-un inviting him to the DMZ line. And both sides, you can see how nervous the North Koreans or the Americans were as both leaders shook hands and he said, come over the line, my friend. And President Trump, the first president to cross that DMZ post-World War II. The guy is remarkable. And it's all driven by peace through strength. It's driven by capitalism. It's driven by discussion and asking some of these lunatics around the world who want to rule with an iron fist, don't you want prosperity not only for your nation, but for your culture, your people? This is what you can have with free market, fair capitalism, with freedom of choice, with being like America. That's what you can ultimately succeed with. And don't you want that to be your legacy rather than forcing an ideology upon your people? It's food for thought. So this president, this commander-in-chief, truly the negotiator-in-chief, as he's about to meet with President of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen. I'm sure they'll have a lot to discuss when it comes to trade policy, Russia and Ukraine, energy policy, and everything really shaping the world as we know it. But no president has had quite the success in the last 6+ months as this president has, and especially throughout the month of June, now in towards the end of July. It's a remarkable thing to watch as he's enjoying the beautiful Scotland within the United Kingdom. And he loves it so much that he ended up purchasing Turnberry and Aberdeen. And good that the president in the hot summer months can go and relax. As you saw that video we played, President Trump with a stellar golf swing. He could probably still play on the senior tour if he so choose, because he has a remarkable game. But you saw there that it was long sleeves, and off of that beautiful Emerald Coast, it gets a little bit nippy at times. It's a pretty moderately cool temperature year-round, rarely going into the high 70s or 80s, but remaining in those 50s and 60s. A beautiful place to tour and a beautiful place to enjoy the great game of golf. And he's getting to do that with friends and family and with the executive vice president of the Trump organization, none other than his son, Eric Trump, who we've had on the show a time or two to discuss incredible policy programs of that great company. And now we are at 11:45 on the East Coast, 8:45 on the West Coast. Good morning, America. Happy Sunday. Thank you for joining us for this special coverage on Right Side Broadcasting Network, our live desk. I'm Robert McNeely, and for those just tuning in, please like, share, and subscribe. There's a few ways to do that. You could go to rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. You could catch today's Sunday devotional that popped up not too long ago on the importance of humility. It's something I love to read our Sunday devotionals at our newsletters before going to church because it puts me in the right frame and set of mind to not only enjoy the Sabbath, but to prepare for my week ahead. But you can also get in-depth different topics, and I'm just looking through my phone here on some of the topics that have popped up recently. So you can catch the link actually to this upcoming meeting through rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. There's also our great sponsors like Tax Network USA detailing what they do. Safe Spaces for All. Well, only the left does that. A great op-ed that's in the newsletter. In addition to all of those, you get the heartbreaking news coverage and deep dive by our great writers into a plethora of topics, whether it's the Epstein files, the ongoing saga with that, the fact that Judge Rosenberg and others sealing those documents, not going with the request of Attorney General Pam Bondi at the behest of President Trump, ordering that any and all documents relating to that should be released, stuff that's credible, documents that people can actually see too, because in this situation, we have to protect the victims. It's a huge part of all this. And the potential leaking of names that might have just simply been in business with the monster otherwise known as Jeffrey Epstein. And if they were simply in business with him and did not know his other practices, you don't want anyone guilty by association, because everyone is innocent before proven guilty in this great country. That threshold is so important based on English common law. And that's something that always strikes me about the founding of our nation. As Sam Adams, the great patriot, really having that rallying cry to his cousin, his first cousin, John Adams, who ended up becoming the second president of the United States. Did you know that John Adams is a lawyer from Massachusetts, also a great farmer as well, defended those redcoats, the British military, in the Boston Massacre. And he looked at it as opinion could lead one way or another, but what is the truth? What are those stubborn facts, as he put it? And it was, at the time, somewhat disheartening to his cousin Sam, saying this could be our fuel, our momentum to go towards revolution. But you saw John had a cooler temperament in the moment. You can understand where both men were prior to the revolution and prior to their signing of the founding documents. But it's about law and reason, that we are equal under God. And that based on great writings like the Magna Carta and bringing together the best of what was Western civilization, 56 men signing that Declaration of Independence nearly 250 years ago, to give birth to all of this, to give birth to a citizen president who chose to leave the limelight, who chose to leave the most successful primetime show in reality television history in The Apprentice, who chose to, I've had enough of this. It's about time that someone who knows something about money, who knows something about sealing the borders, who knows something about listening to the real generals and commanders in our military, actually lead this great nation and fulfill its promise to America, instead of the neocons and the neoliberals and the living former presidents who truly failed this great country. We're approaching August 11th of 1998, just a couple of weeks away. That date, 27 years ago, Bill Clinton finally admitted to the workplace violence he committed against an intern. He's a sexual predator. Why are we not talking about that? Because it's still relevant in 2025. These people, the Clintons, the Bushes, the Obamas, the Autopen, and their cronies wanted to usurp the authority of the duly elected President of the United States. And that from last week, perhaps the biggest breaking news that any of us have seen. That Tulsi Gabbard, we must pray for her protection, because as the DNI declassifying all of that crucial information, many would turn the other cheek. Many would not be brave enough to stand out there. And as she was investigated by those who were once in power, she's a threat to the uniparty system. She has put country before party time and again. She was once a Democrat candidate for President of the United States, 2020, but her party again wanted to push her to the side when she dared challenge then Senator Kamala Harris on her busing record, on the fact that she bragged on these different shows about using marijuana countless times when she actually prosecuted people for doing the same as the DA in San Francisco, while many of those people did not have the funds and access to a private attorney. It's the height of hypocrisy. And we've seen this kind of behavior from the Demon Rat Party dating back to when they first split the nation during the Civil War, because they wanted indentured servitude. And they still want the indentured servitude. They're trying to find a message and they can't find it, whether it's the Palestinian Senator Chuck Schumer, or whether it's No Hips Hakeem, or whether it's the stock trading criminal out in San Francisco, otherwise known as Nancy Pelosi. It's amazing. You can actually follow her stock trades on X. And it's smart to do because you might make some money. For some reason, insider trading is okay for congressmen, but not so much if you're Martha Stewart or a private citizen. And this president going through lawfare to fake impeachments, to the Russia hoax that we know now was created by our intelligence agencies at the direction of the former commander-in-chief. It's almost like a Tom Clancy novel, but more profound. It's real life. It's actually happened in real time. And we know that those who were doing the hunting will now be hunted peacefully and patriotically, and we know they'll face justice in the next life, but will they face true liberty and justice right here, right now, as promised by our founding documents and by the people who founded this great nation? No one's above the law. It almost makes me chuckle as well that you have some of these far-left legacy networks that, oh, no president can be arrested. Well, what did you do to President Donald Trump when he was out of office, seeking to return to the presidency? If I recall, he came to the Fulton County Jail, surrendered himself willingly against ridiculous charges, and had to take that mugshot, the most legendary mugshot in history, and then ends up getting fingerprinted. How humiliating. This same prison run by Fani Willis in Fulton County, Georgia, did you know that someone just prior to that was literally, and not to be gross on a Sunday morning, but the facts are the facts, someone incarcerated was eaten by bed bugs, eaten alive at that prison. That's America. That's not Venezuela. That's not Cambodia. That's not any of these countries we're talking about. This is the United States of America. And regardless of what that individual was in for, that's the very essence of cruel and unusual punishment. But it's these demon rats who are destroying our cities. They're destroying our largest counties. They are weaponizing the political system and you see someone like that who admitted on the stand that she uses her campaign funds and just puts cash wherever she does because she's African American. That was her reasoning. She would take the campaign funds and put them wherever they were. Last time I checked, that's a campaign finance violation. But that's why Don Jr. wrote books like Liberal Privilege. Must be nice to have it in 2025. But regardless, we keep charging forward here at the network. We keep charging forward on the right side of history to expose the truth and to report it just as it is so that you can make up your own mind. Because we know you're smart enough here, those who watch the network and those who are coming to new media, because you did that on November 5th, putting a constitutional government back into place just last year. Let's go there live now. President Trump meeting with the European Union president.
Nice to see you. Well, thank you very much. It's a beautiful Sunday in Scotland, and we thought we could cut things short and certainly travel distance, right, by having our meeting here. So we discuss options, and it's an honor to have the President of the European Union with us. Ursula's been really done a terrific job for them, not for us, but she's done a great job. And she's highly respected by us also. And we look forward to talking to see if we can do something. We've had a very good relationship over the years, but it's been a very one-sided transaction, very unfair to the United States. And I think both sides want to see fairness, but it's been a very, very one-sided deal, and it shouldn't be. And so we're here with her very brilliant staff, and hopefully we'll resolve a few issues. It's a great honor. You know, we just built this ballroom, and we're building a great ballroom at the White House. The White House has wanted a ballroom for 150 years, but they never had a real estate person. You know, no president knew how to build a ballroom. But this just opened, you know, relatively short time ago, and it's been quite the success. And I think I was just saying I could take this one, drop it right down there, and it would be beautiful. This is exactly what they've wanted. But it's an honor to have you at the new ballroom at Turnberry. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much for inviting me here. Indeed, it is today about trade between the European Union and the United States. We're together the two largest economies worldwide.
Right.
If you look at the trade volume, it's the biggest trade volume globally, with $1.7 trillion among us. And if you look at our markets, it's a huge. Take the United States and the European Union. So I'm very much looking forward to the discussions we will have now. Our staff have done some of the heavy lifting, but now it's on us.
Yeah.
And you're known as a tough negotiator and deal maker.
But
what
fair.
is in front and fair. And what is in front of us?
That's less important.
If we are successful, I think it would be the biggest deal each of us has ever struck. So I'm very much looking forward.
Ever struck by anybody? That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Right now we have that that honor goes to Japan. We just struck a deal. There's other deals, and mostly I'm just going to charge tariffs, and you know, it's not a deal per se, but people are going to pay tariffs, and we're doing them at the low end, not the high end, because we don't want to hurt anybody. And pretty well, but you and I both figured this is really the biggest trading partnership in the world, so we should give it a shot, right?
Yeah. Very much looking forward to that.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do too. Any questions, please?
On Friday, you put the chances of a deal at 50%, maybe less. It seems like you're in quite a good mood. How would you rate those chances now?
I'm actually not in a good mood, but I will tell you, I think the chances are, yeah, I think Ursula would say probably 50-50 of making a deal. I hope, I'd like to make a deal. I think it's good for both, but I'd say 50-50.
And what would you say the main sticking points are at this moment?
We have 3 or 4 sticking points. I'd rather not get in. We'll be discussing them. But I think the main sticking point is fairness. Okay? Please.
Why you're in a bad mood? Was it a bad morning of golf, or why you're not in a good mood?
No, the golf was beautiful. Golf can never be bad, even if you play badly. It's still good. If you had a bad day on the golf course, it's okay. It's better than other days. But no, I think I look forward to this meeting. We've had a hard time with trade with Europe, very hard time, and I'd like to see it resolved. But if it isn't, we'll have tariffs, and they'll do what they have to do. But we have a good chance of getting it resolved. We'll probably know in about an hour. Shouldn't take that long. It's complicated, but not really complicated when you get right down to it, right?
August 1st deadline? Is there any chance that gets...
No. The August 1st is there for everyone. The deals all start on August 1st. Most of the deals, other than steel and aluminum, which we've been getting 50% tariffs from, I guess, just about everybody, and those have come in, and we've taken in, hundreds of billions of dollars just on steel and aluminum. You've seen the numbers. We had a tremendous amount of money come in over the last month, and it's coming in, very rapidly, which is fair. We have a lot of steel mills and plants, aluminum mills and plants being built. We have a lot of AI being built, and we have a lot of auto plants being built or going to be built because they don't want to pay tariffs. So, if they don't want to pay tariffs, the best way to do it is just build your plant in the United States. Yes, please.
Sir, what do you expect from the Europeans in terms of opening their markets to American products?
Well, we just about don't have any. I don't think we have any product we say you can't sell. I guess you could get a little bit cute with chips, but that's a little bit different category too. No, Europe is closed. We don't sell cars into Europe. We don't sell essentially agriculture of any great degree. They want to have their farmers do it, and they want to have their car companies do it. I'm not saying anything that nobody knows. We have a rough situation. If we want to sell cars in Europe, we're not allowed to. And as you know, they sell millions and millions of cars, Mercedes, BMW, so many different, Volkswagen, so many different cars, and so many millions of cars. I would imagine number one, I didn't look at that, but I would imagine number one by far, more so than even Japan. Japan sells a lot of cars too. But the Japan deal worked out very favorable, very good. I hope for them too. And that's what we want to do, make everybody happy. Yes, please.
Mr. President, should Israel be doing more to allow food into Gaza?
Say it.
Should Israel be doing more to allow food into Gaza?
What did you say?
Should Israel be doing more to allow food into Gaza?
Well, we gave $60 million 2 weeks ago, and nobody even acknowledged it for food. And it's terrible. You really at least want to have somebody say thank you. No other country gave anything. We gave $60 million 2 weeks ago for food for Gaza. And nobody acknowledged it. Nobody talks about it. And it makes you feel a little bad when you do that and, you have other countries not giving anything. None of the European countries, by the way, gave. Nobody gave but us. And nobody said, gee, thank you very much. And it would be nice to have at least a thank you. And I took a lot of heat. When I do that, a lot of people aren't happy about that because they say, well, why are we doing it and nobody else? But I think we had a humanitarian reason for doing it. What's going to happen? I don't know. I can tell you that Hamas, as I said would happen, at the end, we've gotten back a lot of hostages, a tremendous number of hostages, most of them. Now we have dead hostages, and the mothers want them back, and we have 20 people approximately, but that are living. But we have a lot of bodies, and the parents want those bodies as much as they would want their child if that child were alive. I was I met with parents it was so sad. Sir, please get my son back. How is your son doing? Well, he's dead, but they have his body, and it's so important. It's more important. It's almost like more, but it's as important as if the child were living. These people were, they're devastated. And I said, when you get it down to a certain number, you're not going to be able to make a deal with Hamas, because once they give them up, then they feel that that's going to be the end of them. And what I said is exactly true. You know, they had a routine discussion the other day, and all of a sudden they hardened up. They don't want to give them back. And so Israel's going to have to make a decision. I know what I do, but I don't think it's appropriate that I say, but Israel's going to have to make a decision.
Mr. President, when you were in the Middle East, you talked about the images coming out of Gaza and starving kids. Those images are still going. Many of them are much worse. Thinner children starving. What do you see or feel when you look at those images today?
Well, it's terrible. You know, when I see the children, and when I see, especially over the last couple of weeks, and people are stealing the food, they're stealing the money, they're stealing the money for the food, they're stealing weapons, they're stealing everything. It's a mess. That whole place is a mess. The Gaza Strip, you know, was given many years ago so that they could have peace. That didn't work out too well. When Israel gave that up, whoever was the prime minister at the time, who I know who it was, but it was not exactly a very clever thing to do, because that was given so that they finally have peace, and it's actually made the situation worse. But we'll see what happens. I think Iran is acting up. I think that we have a lot of people we have Venezuela acting up in a different way. They continue to send people that we rebuff to our border. They continue to send drugs into our country. Venezuela, they've been very nasty, and we can't let that happen. But we have other countries too. We do have, and this is just getting a little off subject, but we have now the safest border we've ever had. And I think in many respects we probably have the most successful. And I say it all the time. Every leader, when I went to NATO the other day, every leader said, you have the hottest country in the world. We have the hottest country in the world now. We're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. We have the highest stock market we've ever had. We have the best numbers we've ever had. But we have hundreds of billions of dollars pouring into our country. And I think it's the hottest. And by the way, 1 year ago, our country was dead. We had a dead country because of an incompetent president and incompetent Democrats. All they know how to do is talk and think about conspiracy theories and nonsense. If they'd waste their time talking about America being great again, it would be so much nicer, so much easier, be very successful. But we were a dead country, and now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. Yeah. Any other question?
President Trump, on this particular deal, if you manage to do a deal today, will that be the end of the matter, or could there be more tariffs coming, particularly on fires?
No, if we do a deal today with the European Union, that will be the end of it. Yeah, we'll go, I guess, a number of years at least before we have to even discuss it again. No, that would be the end of it. And this is the biggest deal. People don't realize this is bigger than any other deal. We have great countries. I'm familiar with many of them. So are you. And this is really the biggest deal. This is I guess we're the biggest out there, and they're the second. And when we come together, this will be the biggest deal. If that happens, and it could happen, should happen. Okay? Thank you.
Will pharmaceuticals be part of today's?
No, it won't. Pharmaceuticals will be, could be, we'll do something, but basically pharmaceuticals won't be part of it because we have to have them made in the United States, and we want them made in the United States. And I think it's easy to say, and I think it's important to say pharmaceuticals are very special. We can't be in a position where we're relying on other countries. Now, Europe is going to make pharmaceuticals, drugs, and everything else for us too, a lot. But we're going to have also our own.
A question for President von der Leyen.
Yes.
Can you give your assessment of what you feel the chances are of deal? The president just talked about a 50-50 chance, and the biggest obstacle being fairness. What would you say are those things for you?
I think the president is right. We have a 50 to 50% chance to strike a deal. And indeed, it is about rebalancing. So you can call it fairness, you can call it rebalancing. We have a surplus, the United States has a deficit, and we have to rebalance it. We have an excellent trade relation. It's a huge volume of trade that we have together. So we will make it more sustainable.
Mr. Trump, can you do better than 15% tariff rate for the EU?
Better meaning lower?
Yeah.
No.
Mr. President, to return to Gaza, you're going to meet the British Prime Minister tomorrow. He's going to ask you to consider again peace talks between Israel and Hamas. Are you now saying there is no point in trying to resolve?
Well, we're meeting about a lot of things. We have our trade deal, and it's been a great deal. It's good for them and good for us, I think. You know, the UK is very happy. They've been trying for 12 years to get it, and they got it. And it's a great trade deal for both. It works out very well. But we'll be discussing that. I think we're going to be discussing a lot about Israel. They're very much involved in terms of wanting something to happen. He's doing a very good job, by the way.
Also on Gaza, sir, did you speak with Prime Minister Netanyahu this weekend about getting more aid to Gaza?
I talked to him, yeah, I did. I talked to him about a lot of things. I talked to him about Iran. I think Iran's been very nasty with their words, with their mouth. I think they've been very nasty. They got the hell knocked out of them, and I don't think they know it. You know, I actually don't think they know it. They really do. The whole thing's a con job. We have a lot of con jobs going on. But Iran was beaten up very badly, for good reason. We cannot have them have a nuclear weapon. But they still talk about enrichment. I mean, who would do that? You just come out of something that's so bad, and they talk about, we want to continue enrichment. Who would say that? How stupid can you be to say that? So we're not going to allow that to happen. We're not allowing that to happen.
Did you talk about more aid into Gaza?
Will I do more aid? Yeah. The U.S. is going to do more aid for Gaza, but we'd like to have other countries participate. We're going to mention that to the European Union today. That's an international problem. It's not a U.S. problem. It's an international problem. And we're giving a lot of money and a lot of food and a lot of everything. If we weren't there, I think people would have starved, frankly. They would have starved. And it's not like they're eating well. But a lot of that food is getting stolen by Hamas. You know, they're stealing the food. They're stealing a lot of things. You ship it in and they steal it. Then they sell it.
On Friday you said that Europe is being crushed by mass migration, and I wonder whether your friends on this side of the room agree with you on that.
Well, I'd let you respond to that if you'd like.
So we have been working intensively on the topic of irregular migration. And we have, from the very beginning, said that migration is a European challenge that needs a European answer. As Europeans, we will fulfill our international obligations, as we've done in the past, also in the future. But we, as Europeans, are the ones who decide who comes to the European Union and under what circumstances, and not the smugglers and traffickers. That's the principle in which we are working.
I will say this, they did ask me when I got off the plane, immigration, Europe has a tremendous problem, and we do too, but we've sealed our borders. We have nobody coming in, and we have hundreds of thousands of people being taken out, and the bad ones first, and I think we're doing a very good job of that. But it literally registered 0 people last month. You probably saw that, nobody. And Europe has a very similar problem. I think they're going to end up in the same place. You might as well go there quicker. And the other thing I say to Europe, we will not allow a windmill to be built in the United States. They're killing us. They're killing the beauty of our scenery, our valleys, our beautiful plains. And I'm not talking about airplanes. I'm talking about beautiful plains, beautiful areas in the United States. And you look up, and you see windmills all over the place. It's a horrible thing. It's the most expensive form of energy. It's no good. They're made in China, almost all of them. When they start to rust and rot in 8 years, you can't really turn them off. You can't bury them. They won't let you bury the propellers, the props, because they're a certain type of fiber that doesn't go well with the land. That's what they say. The environmentalists say you can't bury them because the fiber doesn't go well with the land. In other words, if you bury it, it will harm our soil. The whole thing is a con job. It's very expensive. And in all fairness, Germany tried it, and wind doesn't work. You need subsidy for wind, and energy should not need subsidy. With energy, you make money. You don't lose money. But more important than that is it ruins the landscape. It kills the birds. They're noisy. You have a certain place in the Massachusetts area that over the last 20 years had 1 or 2 whales wash ashore, and over the last short period of time, they had 18, okay? Because it's driving them loco. It's driving them crazy. Now, windmills will not come. It's not going to happen in the United States, and it's very expensive, and I would love to see. I mean, today I'm playing the best course, I think, in the world, Turnberry. Even though I own it, it's probably the best course in the world, right? And I look over the horizon and I see 9 windmills. It's like great. At the end of the 18th, I said, isn't that a shame? What a shame. You have the same thing all over Europe in particular. You have windmills all over the place. Some of the countries prohibit it, but people ought to know that these windmills are very destructive. They're environmentally unsound, just the exact opposite. Because the environmentalists, they're not really environmentalists. They're political hacks. These are people that they almost want to harm the country. But you look at these beautiful landscapes all over the world. Many countries have gotten smart. They will not allow it. They will not. It's the worst form of energy, the most expensive form of energy. But windmills should not be allowed. Okay. I did.
Are they doing enough to stop this?
I hope so. You're talking about Cambodia and Thailand? So I had an interesting time. We're dealing with Thailand, and we do a lot of trade with Thailand and with Cambodia. And yet, I'm reading that they're killing each other. They're fighting. They're in a war. And I say, this should be an easy one for me because I've settled with India and Pakistan, and Serbia and Kosovo was going at it, but they have for a long time, in all fairness, right? You know about that. And others, the Congo, and what's gone on there. That's been a horrible thing with Rwanda. That's been a horrible thing. 31 years, 7 million, 8 million people killed. Machetes all over the place. It's a terrible thing. We got that one solved. We did 5 of them. And I was saying, we have a trade deal. We were working on another. We finalized another trade deal yesterday. And I asked my people, I said, how are we doing with Cambodia and how are we doing with Thailand? And they say they're going to be coming in at some point to talk. I said, well, let's call them right now. So I called the prime ministers of each. And I said, we're not going to make a trade deal unless you settle the war. A lot of people are killed, that in a short period of time. The border, they're fighting pretty like wild. And I spoke to both of the prime ministers, and I think by the time I got off, I think they want to settle now. I know they're meeting today or tomorrow, and we're going to work with them. Marco Rubio's working with them also, his people, and him. I think we're going to get that. That would be a great thing, but that would have turned out to be a bad one. And I will tell you, India and Pakistan, they were really getting ready to go at it. So getting those things settled, if I can do it, and if I can use trade to do that, it's my honor. But I had great talks with 2 very good people that they both really would like to make a deal. So we'll see what happens. Okay, how about 1 more, 2 more?
Europe's now spending a lot more on defense, thanks to you.
They are.
Should they get a fairer deal on trade and exchange?
Well, they're spending a lot on defense, but we're spending a lot more. And we've been very generous to NATO for many, many years. And but we had a terrific meeting with NATO. I'd love to do as well. We had a meeting where they put up 5% instead of 2%, and they're going to pay it instead of not paying, because many people didn't pay the 2% or anywhere near it, and the 2% was too low. And we're going to be sending now military equipment and other equipment to NATO, and they'll be doing what they want, but I guess for the most part working with Ukraine. But we had a fantastic meeting, I guess it's now almost 4 weeks ago, one of the best meetings they've ever had at NATO. And the spirit and the coming together was incredible. And I stood and I listened to almost 30 speeches. That was a lot. And I was really late, and I had to leave, but I didn't want to leave before those last 10 spoke, because they'd go home and they'd tell their wife, Trump left. And they were so nice to the United States. They were all mentioning the United States, and me, but they were mentioning the United States, to be here. It's such an honor, you know, et cetera. And I thought it would have been inappropriate. But I did stay. It was very hard, because I was extremely late for something else that was, you know, pretty important. And we had a tremendous NATO meeting. I'm sure you heard that too. Yep. It was great. There's some great people that you deal with on two fronts, right? But you deal with on primarily the trade front. But I will tell you, they came together, and the relationship is really good. That was it's an interesting question, because you probably have reported it that way. It really, we came together, and they went from 2% to 5%, which nobody would have thought that was even. Who would even think that? Because they didn't want to be at 2%. All of a sudden, they're 5%. And that's the right number. And so it was a great honor. I got to know the heads of those countries really very well at that meeting almost a month ago. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody. We'll let you know what's happening. I will. I love Doonbeg. I'll go. It's not in the Strip, but I'll go soon. Okay? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. President, where we came from.
And President Trump sitting down with the European Union President Ursula von der Leyen. A very good, constructive meeting taking place, and we will probably have more details regarding exactly what's discussed later on in this evening. It's 5:20 in Turnberry, Scotland. It is 12:20 on the East Coast in Washington, D.C. I'm Robert McNeely. Happy Sunday to you. As we know there from the questions from reporters, $60 million given from the United States in Gaza aid for food, and no one says thank you. It's just an amazing thing when you hear the narrative, especially on America's college campuses, that somehow this country is not generous, it's not good. Nothing could be further from the truth. And this administration working peace through strength at hand. Now with the two largest economies in the world together, the United States of America and the European Union, and President Trump saying that this trade deal, if it gets done, it's the absolute biggest. And all he's looking for is fairness. And the European Union president stating that we know how much of a tough negotiator President Trump is. Now, thank you to our sponsors, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, ivermectin, antibiotics, hydrochloroquine, NAD+, and much, much more, from methylene blue to mebendazole, 200 essential medications and antibiotics, again, that can save you not only at your home from bacterial and viral infections, but you can also take these on the road. Code RSBN10, that's 10% off now. And Michael Kunzler is introducing an additional 25% off. So if you go with code RSBN10 for the 10% off, he's going to tack on another 25% off. So go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN today. And once you make that purchase, you'll get 35% off your entire order. Scan the QR code now. Really can't be unprepared in 2025 with everything happening throughout the world, with the natural disasters, and with the PBMs, the insurance companies that simply double dip at times and own pharmacies and don't want you to have the life-saving access to these great medications. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN exists to protect you. No red tape, no insurance, no worries, no bureaucracy, just doctors and pharmacists, nurses who are patriots and care about you. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN and mypillow.com/RSBN, the free shipping sale. The MyCross going for half off now, a male and female version of what Mr. Mike Lindell wears on a daily basis. The MyPillow bed sheets as low as $24.98, all sizes, all colors. Multi-use MyPillows 2.0. going for $9.98, better than most lunch deals out there. And with over 2,000 options at mypillow.com/RSBN, why not call today and don't delay? 800-836-7566. Support Mike Lindell and RSBN by going to mypillow.com/RSBN. RSBN, the purveyor of free speech, the defender of election integrity, and the master marketer, as President Trump has put it, Mike Lindell. mypillow.com/RSBN. Thank you, sir, for your sponsorship of The Right Side of History. And it is Sunday, so we hope you get some time to enjoy with family and friends and the beautiful weather that might be in your neck of the woods. For all America First updates and exclusive offers, rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. If you wish to opine, feedback at rsbn.tv, feedback at rsbn.tv. If you have not yet done so today, go to church, enjoy the Sabbath, and pray for President Trump. Pray for every office holder, in fact, because it's a tough job. It's a tough world, but we know that with the Japanese, the Philippines, and Thailand trade deals, on top of now discussing with Cambodia, in the middle of getting 18 holes in beautiful Turnberry, Scotland, it all makes for a weekend for President Trump. On top of stopping these crazy windmills, perhaps we'll have more energy discussion on things that work, like big, beautiful coal and the liquid gold under our feet, or even nuclear power. But that's terrible bird killers. We got to get rid of those, as President Trump is committed to that. For all of my colleagues here on The Right Side of History, I'm Robert McNeely. Have a blessed Sunday, and we'll see you this week for more updates.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.